Good morning, you all. Glenn Thomas had that moment we've all had where he realized his papers were on his desk, and it was nearly 11. So I think we ought to start singing Blue Boat Home to surprise him greatly upon his return, shall we? Yeah. I think it's 10, is it 1064? Is that 1064?
Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to First Universalist Church of Minneapolis. We are a Unitarian Universalist community of faith, which means we value every individual and the web of all existence of which we are a part. We are a community of many faiths, which share common values, and we worship by lifting up that which is of worth, to challenge our minds, renew our hearts and spirits, and guide the work of our hands. My name is Lori Stevens, and I am your ministerial intern for this church year. I'm very glad to be leading worship this morning with Reverend Arif Mamdani, Lauren Wyeth, Dr. Glenn Thomas Rideout, and Franco Holder. Thank you to all of our First U volunteers who help make Sunday mornings happen, to those who bring flowers, those who put up the beautiful and thematically appropriate banners, to our ushers and greeters, to all the volunteers who will help make this afternoon's barn dance a delight for all who attend. Thank you. We are so glad you could be here with us this morning, both online and in person. If you have come expecting perfection, I encourage you to change your mind. But if you have come to find a place with a people who want to build community, where no one is too old, too young, too queer, too hetero, where no one is too black, too brown to matter, too white to get woke, where no one is too wealthy, too poor, too disabled to lead our common journey, too ineloquent to have a voice, where no one is too timid to make a difference that shakes the status quo, where no one is too broken to be worthy, then you have found just the place. Welcome. Love is alive here and growing in our hearts and hands. Come, let us celebrate. Let us choose the truth and joy. Let us comfort and keep each other for a while. And may the power of what we realize in this hour come to heal us and move with us into the wider world and awaken the fullness of our compassion. Let us begin with these words by Joy Atkinson. The womb of stars embraces us. Remnants of their fiery furnaces pulse through our veins. We are of the stars, the dust of the explosions cast across space. We are of the earth. We breathe and live in the breath of ancient plants and beasts. Their cells nourish the soil. We build our communities on the harvest of their gifts. Our fingers trace the curves carved in clay and stone by forebears unknown to us. We are a part of the great circle of humanity, gathered around the fire, the hearth, the altar. We gather anew this day to celebrate our common heritage. May we recall in gratitude all that has given us birth.
I'm getting all tangled up in all my stuff this morning. So, friends, each week when we gather for worship, we light our chalice, and most weeks it is youth that we entrust to be keepers of the flame. But I've been hearing recently a question as to whether the adults know the words for our chalice lighting, and whether adults in the congregation can be trusted to keep the flame. And so I wonder, are there any amongst you who feel like you know our chalice lighting words quite well and would be willing to lead the congregation? Adults only, please. Yes, it is a little bit of a pop quiz, I'm sorry. And I love how timid you all are. Look at that, not a single hand is going up. Lisa, would you like to come up here? And who amongst you, adults again, feels qualified to light our chalice, to be the keeper of our flame? I will demonstrate how this works.
They haven't had the training.
Yeah, they haven't had the training, so I'm going to just give you a quick little primer on how to do this. You take the match, you light it from this little candle that is secretly here. You then light the can of alcohol that is our flame. This is the tricky part when you're wearing a mask. You have to pull the mask down, blow out the match, and then put the used match on the left side, right here. Who is that Velma? Yeah. I couldn't see you behind the mask. Great, please, come on up. Oh, I put that match in the wrong place. Okay. It should be turned on. Yeah.
Please join me in the words for lighting our chalice. I can't remember them. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great commitment to life, brother, and peace, to find the truth in love, and to love one another.
Youth, how did we do? Did we pass? Yeah, maybe. Okay, we need to keep working. Did we get a B? We got a B. I see some nods. Okay, we got a B. Excellent. Thank you. Lauren, I think we have a story to tell. Do you have
I think we do. I wonder, have you ever watched a seed grow? Yeah? Have you noticed how it begins so small, so still, so quiet, like a gift waiting to be opened? And how slowly it wakes up begins to unfold, growing into something larger and larger.
It depends on what you're growing, though, doesn't it?
Of course it does. But if you've watched a seed, then you know that whatever comes from a seed usually ends up looking very little like the seed it came from, which is also true of the very first seed. Once, long, long ago, way back before the beginning of time.
But it could have been yesterday, or this morning, or tomorrow.
Yeah, it could have been yesterday, or today, or not yet, tomorrow. Yeah, but in all of those times, there was, or is, or will be, a before the beginning. A time long, long ago, when there was no such thing as time, because there was no one there to count it.
Oh.
So in this time before time, which came before yesterday, today, and tomorrow, everywhere was a huge, deep, mysterious place, like something waiting to happen. There were no stars, no sun or moon. There was no place like Earth, not a drop of water or a single tree or a rock or flowers, and no living beings anywhere. But in that deep waiting space was hidden the tiniest point of something no bigger than a seed. It was not a flower seed. It was not an elm tree seed. It was not a seed of corn. Although all those things were included inside the seed, you might call it an everything seed, because that is what it became. No one knows where that first seed came from, or how it was planted, or how it knew, in the way that only seeds seem to know, how long to wait for just the right moment to sprout and grow. But all at once, this tiny seed, cradled and nourished in the rich soil of space, woke up, broke open, and began to unfold. Unfolding, unfolding, and blossoming forth into an enormous, blazing ball of bright light, like a great grandmother's sun. And the universe was born. Out fluttered the galaxies like a storm of snowflakes, swirling and gathering into the brightest, most blindingly beautiful clouds of stars. And out of those star clouds whirled our own star, the one we call the sun, and our Earth, and our moon, and all the round spinning planets we have learned how to name. And this is the secret of that tiny seed. You and I were there. We were there in the very beginning, just as the idea for each leaf on a big oak tree lies hidden inside an acorn. We were there, with all the stars and the planets, all the rocks and oceans, plants and animals and people, everything. Everything that is now, ever was, or ever will be, was inside that tiny first seed. So whenever you hold a seed in your hand and wonder what it could become, imagine how you and all that is here once came from the tiniest speck of an everything seed before it sprouted and grew long, long ago.
But it could have been yesterday, or today, or tomorrow.
Yes, it could have been then, now, or yet to come. Now, if this were an ordinary story, this is where it would end. But Arif, as you helpfully remind us, this story of the universe keeps unfolding. What once began in a blazing blossom of light continues every day. New stars sprout open in the deep soil of space. New plants and animals appear on Earth. Seeds of many kinds are scattered everywhere to help us remember. And new people are born every single day, too, with the spark of that first light still alive and burning deep inside, waiting, like the everything seed, to shine in ways that are yet to be known.
Thank you, Lauren. I love that story. That story makes me think about the story that we have been telling these last many weeks about church, about the seeds that we plant here in this congregation and the seeds that we plant out in the wider world. Sometimes these are real seeds that we plant, like when we plant trees or when we plant food. And sometimes these seeds are ideas, they are hopes, they are dreams that we plant in the shared soil of our congregation. A few weeks ago,
Or it could have been yesterday, or right now.
It could have been yesterday,
Yeah, or now.
or right now, maybe even tomorrow, but a few weeks ago, or yesterday, or right now, we sent paper out to folks in the congregation that we have addresses for, and we invited you to come to church to grab a special piece of paper if you did not get one in the mail. These special pieces of paper are paper with seeds embedded in them, seed paper. And we asked you, or we are asking you now, or tomorrow, to write on your seed paper, if you did not already, a hope or an aspiration for this community. What is a seed that you want to plant here in this church? To write down that seed that you want to plant, kind of like the seed that we planted in the story, the everything seed. Because church is kind of like that everything seed, right? We bring here these seeds that we want to plant, knowing that what we plant can grow into whatever it is that we imagine, and knowing that what we plant here, once it starts growing with everything else, will become something bigger than we can imagine it will be on its own. And so here in my hands, I have a few pieces of seed paper that folks sent back to us. And I want to share with you just some examples of what was written on them. So one person sent us a piece of paper, sent it back. It's in the shape of a butterfly, and it says joy on it. That is a seed that they want to plant. And another person wrote compassion as a seed that they want to plant here in this church. And another person said that they want to plant a seed of solidarity here in this church. Can anyone tell me what solidarity means? How you might explain that? No idea. Yeah, what are you thinking? Staying together. Staying together. Yeah. Staying connected. Toward a common goal. Staying connected toward a common goal. These are some of the kinds of things that we're encouraging you to plant here in this congregation, right? On these pieces of paper that maybe you received in the mail, maybe you already picked up at church, maybe you're going to grab before you leave today. There are blank pieces as you were coming into the sanctuary. What we're asking you to do is to write down a seed that you want to plant so that we can bring it here and plant it not just amongst us here in the congregation, but out in the wider world. So what we're going to do right now, as Lauren was just showing, is we have planted some of these seeds, right? We've planted them here in this soil that was nourished by the compost that we created these last couple of weeks. If you were in service, you remember you were invited to write down on another special piece of paper. We're really doing a lot with fancy pieces of paper this season. This is a season of fancy pieces of paper. So we asked you to write down on that paper things that you are releasing, things that you are letting go of. And those were dissolved in the water of the congregation. Some of that is fertilizing, is composting our soil. And I'm going to water this with water from the congregation, water collected in our water communion. And we are going to allow that to grow. Just a little more. And here is the next part of this invitation for you all. For the grown-ups in the sanctuary, as you depart, we invite you to take a piece of seed paper with you, not the piece that you brought with you, but someone else's. To take that with you, to take that home, and when the weather permits, my goodness, it is still snowing. When the weather makes this possible, to plant that piece of paper, to plant those seeds somewhere where you can nourish them, to water that seed, be it a seed of compassion or joy or hope or whatever it is that it says on that piece of paper, and to care for that dream and hope and aspiration as if it were your own. Because that is what we do here in this congregation. We bring ourselves together in the many ways that we give and receive and grow here. We plant seeds and we grow and nourish them together so that they might become something far, far grander than we can possibly imagine on our own. Amen? Amen. Wow.
In this soil, we have seeds. There's water. There is the soil, of course. What else does it need to grow? Yes! It needs sun. Please rise. The hymn is "This Little Light of Mine." Let's sing to make something grow. This little light of mine. Whoa, I'm gonna let it grow. I'm gonna let it grow. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Building up a world, building up a world. Here we go. Building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. This little light, one more time. This little light. Here we go. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light.
So, dear ones, we have planted, we have watered, we have shined our light. In just a moment, I will be inviting the youth amongst us to go off to your religious education classrooms. But before you do, I'd like you to join me in offering a blessing to the adults who are going to stay in the sanctuary. I'm glad that that was amusing. So, young ones, oftentimes when we send you off to your religious education classrooms, we offer words of blessing to you, but I think that what I want you to do this morning is to turn that around. So let's take the light that we created. Let's bring the light that we created into our hands. And if you are a young one who is about to head out to religious education classes, beam some of that light onto these grown-ups around you. Just give them some of that light. We can offer them words of blessing. May you grow in body, mind, and spirit in this hour of worship in the sanctuary. We will be off in our classrooms doing the same. We hope you all have as much fun as we will be having. Any other words of blessing that you want to offer onto the grown-ups who are staying in the sanctuary? And as we wrap that up, we can rub our hands together. I know when I offer blessing through my hands start to get a little hot, get a little energy in them. And then you can just put that into yourself. Soak that up for yourself. And now I invite the older youth, 6th grade and up, to head out to your religious education classes. And now I invite the younger youth, 5th grade and lower, to head out to your religious education classes. I'm gonna let it shine.
A very interesting thing happens at this moment in our community's service together. We have the blessing of a whole lot of sound and bustle from the youngest among us. You can hear it. It represents the going and the growing of new life. And we follow that with some time of collective quiet keeping, with some silence, to reflect with one another, to meditate, to bring ourselves deeper into our center, to hear the still small voice within, if that still small voice is willing to speak. Now is a moment to do that work together. Imagine in America how often you see a crowd this large not making any sound. But here we sit with peace. And we think from the still small voice within of our connection to the interdependent web that holds us all. I'm inviting you in this time of quiet to consider the banners behind me. Have you ever looked at the sky at night and been breathtaken The Black author Lucille Clifton says, "The first poem happened when somebody walked out of a cave or walked onto a savanna and looked up at the sky and said, 'Ah!' That was the first poem." I invite you to a time to allow your spirit to write poetry to you. I'll watch the clock for a while. I invite you to listen. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are holding community in this moment of quiet keeping, a space where we can practice honesty, earnestness, and compassion for ourselves and one another. I encourage you to be gentle in these next moments. I'm inviting us to share joys, concerns, wonder, in the silence of our hearts, or as out loud as it needs to be said. We'll hear you, and we'll hold it with you. I'll begin by asking us to hold Reverend Jen Crow and her family in our hearts as they accompany Reverend Jen's father. Reverend Jen's father's name is Cliff. Cliff begins hospice care tomorrow. Reverend Jen is in Baltimore now to be with him and take care. Let our love and care surround her and her family in this tender time. We can hold that. What else would you add to this space? The circle is open. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Will you hold these names with me? Hold them in your heart while we pray. Dear one, we call you God because a small name is all we can come up with for all that is mysterious and beyond our knowing. Dear one, untamable by name and reason, common start of the uncountable galaxies and unbelievable grace. We have never stopped being surprised at the suddenly happening sparks of life that we are. We're taking this time to give thanks for the gift of living and to admit that we're often challenged by the demand of it. We look to the sky and we see our relations. We see you in ourselves, in the seed, in the star, in the sun. Help us to see the stars in each other too, to companion our earth, the galaxy that it is part of, and the world of galaxies that it joins. Help us to do our small bit of work, connected to all creation. Remind us of joy. Remind us of peace and love. Ashe. Amen. Blessed be. Spirit of life. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirs of compassion. Blowing the wind, rising the sea, moving the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of love, come to me, come to me.
So, dear ones, each week when we gather, we make time for the spiritual practice of generosity as we give and receive our offering. This week, our offering is a little bit different. Some of you may have received, hopefully you received, in the mail or were invited to pick up a packet inviting you to be part of this year's annual giving campaign. And in that packet were commitment cards. They looked something like this, as well as the seed paper that we have mentioned now 3 times, I think, maybe 4, maybe 5. Those of you that are keeping track on your bingo cards, this counts as the free space. But they included these commitment cards, they included the seed paper, and so our offering this morning is sort of a multi-part offering. There are a few different pieces of instruction that I have for you. The first is, when you leave, to make sure that you grab a piece of that seed paper and to take it with you, to plant it and to nourish it. The second part of the invitation is that when the baskets come around, if you brought your card with you, to put it in the basket as it goes past. Now, you may be thinking, oh no, I forgot it at home. It's sitting on the counter, in the bottom of my bag. I meant to grab it. How many times have you walked out the door? Name tags, this happens to all the time, right? My name tag looks really great on my counter at home. If you forgot your card, we have extra. We wouldn't want you to be left out. In fact, we very much want to hear from everyone. And so if you would like, there are blank cards out in the narthex just outside the sanctuary. You can grab one, you can fill it out, you can give it to one of the ushers, you can give it to one of the staff people. We will make sure that you are counted and that card and that commitment of support to the church's annual operating budget gets to where it needs to be. Was that getting kind of springy, or was that just me? Okay. The chalice has been letting its feelings be known recently. The last thing that I want to say to you about these commitment cards is that you can also make your commitment online. If you go to our website, click on the donate button, there is instruction for making your commitment online. So however it is, whether you have a card filled out with you today that you will drop in the offering basket, whether you want to grab one and fill it out before you leave, or whether you want to do this online, we are asking you to let us know today how you would like to support the annual operating budget of the church, how you would like to help to nourish the seeds that are planted here. The last thing that I want to tell you about today's offering is that, as always, as these baskets come past, if you would like to make a donation to support the church, that's where the offering is going today, you are more than welcome to do that as well. Cash, check, credit card information will be projected up on the screens. We thank you for the many, many ways that you support this congregation. I invite the ushers to please come forward.
Whenever I hear good jazz, it makes me proud to be an American. Even prouder to be a black American, because, yeah, we brought us that. It was real good. Thank you, Franco. And thank you to James Williams, the pioneering jazz composer. He doesn't get his due. James Williams, Images of Things to Come, which is beautifully rendered. Thank you very much, Franco. We have an opportunity to sing together. The hymn is 1068, and the title is what Reverend Arif is about to be. It's titled Rising Green. Would you rise? Here we go. My blood doth run in yonder home. In my veins, boundless my soul, like the open sky, where the stars forever have lain. Where the stars, where the stars, where the stars forever have lain. My hand hold the weavings of time without end. My sight as deep as the sea. Beating my heart sounds the measures of old, that of love's eternity. That of love, that of love, that of love's eternity. I feel the tides as they answer the moon, all over distant sand. Winging my song is the wind of my breast, and my love blows over the land. And my love, and my love, and my love blows over the land. My foot carries days of the old into new. Our dreaming shows us the way. Wondrous our face settles deep in the earth, rising green to bring a new day. Rising green, rising green, rising green to bring a new day. Thank you.
It's spring. Wrote that a few days ago. Whoops. I jinxed it. But, it is technically spring. And as I'm sure you are all aware, human cultures acknowledge spring in a bunch of different ways, like Easter and Passover, Ostara, the celebration of the Buddha's enlightenment. All over the Northern Hemisphere right now, things are blooming. The variety of these celebrations is very rich, but the themes are usually similar, coming through something really difficult into something easier. For most of my life, and probably for many of you, I didn't have what I saw everyone else around me doing. These ritual celebrations, these joyous spring moments of togetherness, until I learned about Yuri's Night. Yuri's Night was created by the United Nations as a holiday for all humanity. It's celebrated on April 12th, which was just a few days ago, and it's the anniversary of the first human spaceflight. Yuri Gagarin was an ordinary guy. The Soviets picked him for just that reason. Born to peasants, became a metal worker, kind of short, had a nice smile. If this guy could go to space, anybody could do it. His fellow cosmonauts in training voted for him to go up first, so they must have really liked him. Or they really didn't. As liftoff began, he said the Russian version of "off we go," which became a space geek catchphrase. He blasted up there in his rickety ship. This was 1961. Think about technology in 1961. We had computers, but they were mostly made out of vacuum tubes and hope. Yuri's spacecraft, the Vostok 1, looked like a water heater, a big beige cylinder with a chrome sphere on top. Yeah, he rode that into space. But it did the job. No human had ever flown so high before. A dog, a monkey, some fruit flies, but no humans had ever exited Earth's bubble. For those of us who've lived our whole lives in the space age, that can feel easy to take for granted. But Yuri Gagarin felt that it was important enough to risk his life for. Yuri flew at about 17,500 miles per hour. He became the first human to orbit the Earth one full time, and he did it in about an hour and a half. An hour and a half around the whole world. Incredible. This was his flight path, which included the southern hemisphere. He went down south, in between South America and Antarctica, north over Africa, until, having flown through the night side of the Earth, he arrived back in the same day that he'd left from. Amazing. On re-entry, the spacecraft actually malfunctioned a bit and shook him violently, but he didn't panic, he had trained for this, and he was able to eject over Russia as planned. When he landed near a farm, the farmer and her granddaughter saw him, and they were terrified. This was the age of radio, and they hadn't heard anything about this. So all they saw was this dude in an orange suit with a white head and who had just fallen out of the sky, which had never happened before. But it's okay. He took his helmet off and he said, "I'm a Soviet citizen just like you. I've just come back from space and I need to call Moscow." The celebrations to mark Yuri's return were the biggest since the end of World War II, 16 years before. He went on tour through 30 countries, and his story was published in newspapers across the world. This regular guy had become a global superhero. Now, it feels a little funny to be talking about a Russian hero right now, what with all that's going on. But what I want to invite us to remember is that Russia is full of regular people, just like Yuri. And that this story, this Yuri's Night holiday, isn't about Russia alone, but about humanity together. Yuri's story is part of a shared human story. The United Nations made it a holiday and called it the International Day of Human Spaceflight. People from many places and eras helped each other develop the science and technology. Astronomy from the ancient world, flight from the west, combustible fuel from the east, and yes, one brave Soviet citizen. Today, space programs are still one of the most internationally cooperative industries, whose discoveries aid in medicine, technology, and resisting climate change here on Earth. Among the 600 other people who've been to space since Yuri, a psychological phenomenon called the overview effect has been noted, where the astronauts feel a state of awe, transcendence, and oneness with the entire Earth. The first human spaceflight happened in 1961. Do you know what else happened in 1961? The Unitarians and the Universalists merged. We recognized that we had more in common than not. We honored the past, and something rooted but new began to grow. Our faith is one of the space age, which recognizes inherent worthiness across a connected globe. Our faith is one which speaks truth to power, which is part of the great story of life on Earth. let me tell you a version of that story. Throughout human existence, longer even than our history, we have been tracing our stories onto stars. With just distant points of light on an inviting black canvas, we've seen pictures, stories, maps, and mysteries. By 500 BCE, the Greeks had guessed that we orbit the sun rather than the other way around. But when the Library of Alexandria in Egypt burned, we lost a great treasure of learning. We lost centuries of human endeavor, and it took us ages, literal ages, to catch back up. It wasn't until the 1500s, 2,000 years later, that Copernicus figured it out again. And people in power were furious. Galileo, who came after him, was convicted of heresy and confined to his home until his death, all for trying to understand the cosmos as it really is. It took another 400 years for us to finally poke our head outside, for the first humans to go out there, for humans to work together well enough for long enough to make it possible. And we did it. Yuri Gagarin risked his life, hurtling through inhospitable nothingness, and came back, uninjured, alive. If you ask me, that's a story that fits alongside those great celebrations I mentioned earlier. That's a story worthy of spring. Unitarian Universalism is a community of many faiths. For me, as a UU who's also an atheist, space is a key part of my spirituality. I talk about it a lot. It's kind of my thing. So I know that it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's vast, it's mysterious, it's even a little scary. To a lot of folks, probably to some of you, all this space stuff seems silly. The stuff of Trekkie geeks, totally unrealistic. I think in our day-to-day lives, we have somehow forgotten that it is fact, not science fiction, that we are part of the cosmos. Every time we bask in the sun or gaze up at the moon, there it is. Every particle of our bodies has existed in some combination or other since the Big Bang, because in this universe, nothing is really created or destroyed, only changed. Which is why the beloved astrophysicist Carl Sagan became known for saying, "We are star stuff." Space is our hometown, but we've forgotten our cosmic context. Here's what I mean by our cosmic context. We've heard Yuri's story, and we've heard the story of human spaceflight, but what about the story of life on Earth itself? Besides the Milky Way, we estimate that there are 100 to 200 billion other galaxies. This photo from the James Webb Telescope, which is the sky full of points of light, all those points of light are not stars, they're galaxies. And each of those galaxies, we think, holds between 100 to 400 billion stars. There is a lot of out there. But right here, a lot of extremely particular circumstances all coincided. Conditions were just right, and life emerged. Life is something extremely special. A star, any one of those billions of stars, takes shape, burns its fuel, and dies. It can't seek out more fuel, it can't make more of itself. But life can. We eat and we make babies. The circle of life. By doing so, life can intentionally resist entropy. It resurrects relentlessly. Life on Earth is a part of this universe that is trying as hard as it can not to die. That's our cosmic context. So the harm we cause each other and life on Earth flies in the face of our cosmic purpose. While pain and death are facts of life, causing them unnecessarily is antithetical to our entire existence as living beings. If we are a part of the universe on a mission to live, then genocide, deathly prejudices, gun massacres, and climate change are madness on an epic scale. Yuri Gagarin himself said, quote, "Orbiting Earth in the spaceship, I saw how beautiful our planet is. People, let us preserve and increase this beauty, not destroy it." End quote. I'll briefly mention that I hope you'll be able to join us again next week to hear from our environmental justice team for Earth Day, where they'll be focusing even more deeply on our beautiful planet. The life that has emerged on this planet is precious in the context of the universe. And in my opinion, that's exactly why spaceflight matters. Not because it could make some billionaires a bunch of money. They should be the last people in charge of it. If life is the part of the universe which doesn't want to die, we're going to need to move and spread out eventually, whether that be in 5 decades or 5 millennia. Through the processes of nature, through evolution, collaboration, and ingenuity, humanity has naturally developed the ability to go to space. I think there's a reason for that. I think, for better or worse, it's become our role among the species to steward Earth's incredible variety of life. One method to increase our chances is to spread life across the universe so it can keep doing what it does best: grow, change, and live. While that is a distant possibility, a hope on the horizon, there are smaller ways to steward well-being in this life that we share today. Today, we've planted seeds in soil nourished by changes gone past. We've made commitments to the garden of this gathered community. Many of you have participated in the visionary goals process, which will set a path for the congregation to follow in the coming years. Because we are a community of spirituality and faith, it helps to remember the ultimate purposes for why we do such things. To remind ourselves of our universal interdependence, so we may reduce harm and work for the mutual flourishing of all life, both on Earth and beyond. In Octavia Butler's splendid science fiction novel, Parable of the Sower, she writes, "We are all God's seed, but no more or less so than any other aspect of the universe. God's seed is all there is, all that changes. Earth seed is all that spreads Earth life to new Earths. The universe is God's seed. Only we are Earth seed. And the destiny of Earth seed is to take root among the stars." Amid the raging fires and cold emptiness of space, here we float, brave, curious, and alive. I invite you to remember your cosmic context. Go out there, feel the night sky, how it cradles us, waits for us. You are inextricably part of the great wholeness of the universe. Become aware of your living, breathing interdependence with all life on Earth and all that is beyond it. Work with others to reduce harm and steward life. Participate in the universe's epic, cosmic quest to live. In the words of Yuri Gagarin, off we go. Thank you.
From the seeds that we feed to the seeds that we are, I invite you to sing with me. The hymn is "Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky." It's hymn 301. Rise with me and let's sing together.
Touch the earth, reach the sky, walk on shores while spirits fly. Over the ocean, over the land, our faith, our quest to understand. Touch the earth, reach the sky. Children ask the reasons why. In our lives the answers show, and by our love they learn learn and grow. Touch the earth, reach the sky. All are born and all shall die. Life's the time left in between to follow a star, to build a dream. Touch the earth, reach the sky. Hug the laughter, feel the cry. May we see where we can give, for this is what it means to live. Touch the earth, reach the sky. Soar with courage ever high. Spirits joining as we fly to touch the earth, to reach the sky.
You are made of star stuff. The universe is alive in you, in every person you meet, and in all living beings. May that knowledge comfort your heart, renew your spirit, and guide the works of your hands. May it be so.
Let's sing one more time together. Where you go, I will go, beloved. You're divine, my divine. Here we go.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go.
And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. One more time, where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are mine. You're divine, my divine. Go in peace, my friends. Amen.